Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So the last few days more and more of you have been asking what I think are the best champions to take to rank 5. And first things first, again, obviously mandatory disclaimer, this is a game. If you do have your favorite champion and if you happen to get the class gem, you know, go for it as far as I can say. Prestige is a thing, but for the purpose of this video, I will mention prestige with like a few specific characters, but in general, if you are a prestige driven player, go for the prestige. But I do feel that overall in the game, prestige doesn't matter at the moment quite as much. Therefore, I do not encourage anybody ever neglect your prestige, but at the same time, I think it is kind of like more free time to rank up somebody who's great but might not be as close to that top 5 or top 10 prestige in the game, even as one of your first champions, which is exactly what I did. I had an option to rank a top 10 prestige champion, which I also enjoyed, but there was a different option that I liked more, and I went with that. So I'm basically gonna be ignoring prestige as a qualifier for these champion selections here, but it just so happens that many of these champions are very good and have high prestige. Anyways, that being said, again, as I said, this is a game. If you are particularly good with a specific champion, if you really enjoy a specific champion, go for it and rank it up. However, since this is Kabam game, I know a lot of us didn't necessarily get the class gems that we wanted from EOP acceptance, and it is class and RNG based. So I will give about 4 or 5 options from every single class that I would personally consider the strongest to rank up, and which well, those were also the champions that I was considering to rank up myself with, pending which class gem I get. Science class, most likely I would have taken up Mr. Fantastic, because Mr. Fantastic is an absolute unit of a champion. There are still so many people sleeping on him. I still believe he is about top 3 science champion in the game. But one of the reasons why I would want him to be rank 5 is obviously because he is already tanky and sturdy, and he would become even more so. And then the second thing is because he does take a bit of ramp up, and giving him even a tiny bit extra damage can be extremely helpful in my opinion. So for me personally, I most likely in science class would have gone with Mr. Fantastic, but I suspect that majority of the people would feel most confident and comfortable with Scorpion. Therefore, I do think that Scorpion is arguably the best science rank up choice, because he's just great everywhere. He's, you know, synergize him up. He's great for abreast content. You know, even without synergies, you can run him for a ton of story content and stuff like that. He's great in Alliance War. He's great in battlegrounds. He's great everywhere where it matters. Therefore, I do think Scorpion's arguably the best science option to take to rank 5. And then obviously we do have Quicksilver as the top 5 prestige science option, and I know a lot of people quite like him as well. I personally definitely, you know, would lean towards Scorpion. And if I was to go with Quicksilver, that would be primarily for prestige reasons, and I'll just be honest there. I think Overseer is a very solid option as a rank 5 character as well, giving him even further reach for his like burst when he enters his cosmic cube mode or cosmic damage mode. So I think Overseer is quite solid option, as well as Spot. Now with Spot, obviously a lot is still there to be unknown, but he is on top of my wish list at the moment. And yeah, that's what I do. I would not rush to take up Human Torch, as I have always said before. Human Torch, I think, is as solid as your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th science champion rank up. But before that, you probably want to go with some of the utilitarian champions. Also, Immortal Abomination, I think, is quite solid option. I don't think there's anything wrong with going Immortal Abomination or the Thing, if you so choose to. But now we're going to be moving on with the skill class. Now, obviously, here is Baron Zemo, 4th highest prestige champion in the game, if you care about prestige. As a champion, there's just still far too much unknown about the guy, but if you do have a Baron Zemo, like if I had a Baron Zemo, I probably would have taken him up to rank 5, just because he would likely work decently well as an Alliance War defender, as a Battlegrounds defender, and has super high prestige, and then I deal with it. In general, though, I think that Kingpin is the best skill champion in the game, and also pretty much the best target for that gem, because he works again everywhere in every single game mode that matters. And now a lot of people still do not seem to get on board with Kingpin because he is a simple champion. There isn't too much on him. Level 1 degen reduces attack and ability accuracy. And then there's a shrug off, and that's all he needs. That he does those things so well that that's all that matters. I think Nick Fury is one of the better options as well, because obviously capable offensively, capable defensively. You do need to run deep wounds with him, but definitely a great option there. And then we have Valkyrie, a champion that I almost did go with as well, just because she is top 10 skill champion, and she's proving herself more and more in Battlegrounds and pretty much everywhere else. I was kind of worried that she would be too slow, but man, she just puts in work in so many different metas and Alliance, where she's one of the MVPs at the moment as well. So I definitely expect quite a lot of Valkyrie in future, so absolutely no shame. And speaking of Valkyrie, I do think that Massacre is a perfectly solid rank 5 option as well. It is somebody that I would definitely take ahead of Black Cat or ahead of Hitmonkey and stuff like that. I just think he covers more matchups when it comes to Battlegrounds and stuff. But in general, I think Massacre has been gaining more and more popularity as well. And then as a final option, Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi primarily because he is a nuke type of champion, and getting him to rank 5 would definitely improve kind of like his fight speed as well, because that level 2 would have ever so bigger reach, I would say. Now, Mutant class is ironically the class that I personally wanted the least, but if I were to get a Mutant gem, I personally would have taken Bishop to rank 5 most likely, because again, he is solid pretty much everywhere. More and more people are growing to appreciate him. He's great for Battlegrounds offensively, defensively. He's great for Alliance War defensively primarily, but also can put in work offensively. And then he's starting to shine in more and more different quests. Now, another option, I don't think Archangel is the best first rank 5 necessarily, but I would strongly still consider him. Kitty Pryde is probably the most popular go-to option in Mutant class, and I can absolutely see why. The thing with Kitty Pryde though is you need to ask yourself, do you enjoy her as a champion? Do you like her, and are you decently good with her? Because she's not a champion that kind of clicks with everybody in the similar way, I would say, as Mr. Fantastic or Quake or Ghost and so on and so forth. So again, that is the more important thing also, which champions you personally prefer, which champions you feel more comfortable with, and always use that as your tiebreaker when you are considering these things. So if you are good with Kitty, if you do enjoy using her, definitely an amazing rank 5 option. Then next up, Omega Red. I still think there's absolutely nothing with taking your Omega Red up to rank 5, especially given that his spore damage goes up with his base attack, therefore increasing his base attack and base health would make him even burstier of a champion. And in many of the fights, that's where he kind of shines, with that initial amount of burst that you can accumulate, and especially when you're running Liquid Courage Double Edge, many of the fights entirely depend on how much spores you get up at the beginning of the fight and how long you can maintain them, because at some point they will drop. It's pretty much only a matter of the time, and then you kind of need to build up the damage. But the more you can get in at the start of the fight, the obviously more powerful he is as a champion, and definitely a solid option. And a champion that I was considering myself as well is Domino now. And Domino is purely, I think, a Battlegrounds rank up, because obviously she can be useful here and there. She can be useful for Alliance War defense here and there as well. But she is arguably the best Battlegrounds defender, or one of the best Battlegrounds defenders, with pretty much unavoidable damage that she throws back at people. And then in plenty of the metas, she doubles up as a dual-purpose champion too. So Domino is, in my opinion, also one of the more solid options. Moving on to tech class, I think Nimrod is arguably the best target. He is decently solid prestige, not up top anymore, but he's also an absolute monster. And the reason why Nimrod's rank up would be so important is because that would make his level 2 go even up further. We all have had those fights when we get up to our level 2. We drop it, an opponent remains at like 10% health, and then you need to spend another 15 seconds trying to get those last 10% because their willpower healing, you're in your armor phase, and the damage just doesn't seem to be there. So anything that gives Nimrod an ability to level 2 nuke something gives him a tremendous amount of extra damage and power basically in the fights. So I think he's pretty much the best target in the tech class, the one that I would have went with anyways. Then we have Ghost, obviously still one of the, if not the best champion, well, again, one of the best champions in the game, and absolutely similar reasons. Burst down, the more you can finish off with your level 2 with that big spike of damage, the better. And obviously she's also quite squishy, so giving her extra health is super useful. Now, Infamous Iron Man, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really in the infamous Iron Man fan club. I still think that, you know, in tech class there are better champions. I think that OG Doom is better, so on and so forth. I don't think he's a bad champion by any means. I just don't think he's that great either, but he has that prestige, so there you go. That would definitely be a prestige type of rank up as well. Next up, Guardian. I think Guardian's gaining more and more relevance recently as well, largely thanks to Battlegrounds. Everywhere else, if you don't have the previously mentioned champions or you do not fancy them too much, I think Guardian is extremely solid option, as well as Warlock. Warlock is definitely one of those champions I think people are kind of like missing the trick with a bit, especially when it comes to using Warlock in Battlegrounds, because Warlock is extremely versatile champion that can double up as an amazing defender. His obvious biggest problem is that he has relatively modest damage output unless you're running Liquid Courage Double Edge, and having him at high sig really helps that. So that's the first advice there is, if you use Warlock a lot, get him to Sig 200. Difference is quite noticeable in the amount of direct damage your opponents are going to be taking from the degen, because the degen is pretty much ever present throughout the entire fight. So you finish out fights significantly quicker. But the second point is, that's why you also want to rank him up. If he gets beefier, chunkier, he's going to finish fights quicker. And you want to use those rank up resources on champions that you can use and utilize and benefit from a lot. And Warlock is definitely one of those champions that's almost always present in every meta, so on and so forth. And obviously he's still amazing Alliance war attacker and just in general questing champion. I think Omega Sentinel is also perfectly solid rank up option, but at this point I would pick probably any of the champions I mentioned on this list before Omega Sentinel. Cosmic class is just Hercules. Hercules is the best champion in the game. I have heard a lot of people asking, like, should I rank up Galen or something like that. Hercules, there's a reason why Hercules is so busted. There's a reason why Kabam hates Hercules so much, and Kabam devs themselves kind of like have a wet dream of being able to nerf Hercules without a huge community pushback. So there's just no argument. He still has very high prestige. I believe he's just out of top 10 now, but he's very close to it. So his prestige is good. He's insanely good for virtually anything that exists in the game. And if I get a Cosmic Gem, I wouldn't think twice. Hercules would go up. Then moving on, obviously, we have Galen. Galen would be my second choice, I would say. Because, again, with Galen, I do think I personally prefer Hulkling slightly, but I would still rank up Galen first, just because, again, with Hulkling, the only difference would be that you're going to end up needing to throw a couple more combos to finish off the fight. With Galen, the difference might be that whether you can or cannot burst something down, and that is quite important. And with, yeah, I think Galen just needs that higher rank more than Hulkling does, so if that is your choice, I'll say go with Galen, and I would go with Galen, even though I slightly prefer Hulkling. And speaking of Hulkling, an amazing rank 5 option as well. Keep that in mind. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking your Hulkling up. Hyperion, still as ever, solid rank 5 option. I have taken my Hyperion up to rank 4 and I absolutely love the guy. So, an obvious candidate rank 5. And we have CGR. I don't think CGR is necessarily in a rush. I think with CGR I have similar opinion as with like Human Torch and Archangel and a couple of other champions, where I really would love a rank 5 CGR, but just a bit later on. Maybe not as the first one. So there you go. Boom, out. And let's move on to Mystic class. And obviously we have Silver Surfer and Cosmic class, as well as the Prestige option. Moving on to the Mystic class. Final class here. Dr. Doom is kind of like, I think, de facto default option. Great prestige, great pretty much everywhere in the game. One of the best champions in the game. So that's kind of like an automatic choice for many. I think Tigra is one of the best champions to take to rank 5 in the game as well. Just because of her speed to burst down these fights. And again, taking her up to rank 5 will increase the amount of fights she can just level 2 and done, because that's kind of often the thing with Tigra is it's relatively easy to set yourself up at the start of the fight and finish the and you know, deal that massive burst of damage. But if that does not finish the opponent, then the difficulty level of the fight goes up quite drastically, because you need to make sure that your senses don't expire. You need to make sure that, you know, you get back to another level 2 and everything else. If you can burst down things with like a single level 2 or level 2 and level 1, that makes it a lot easier. And I think Tiger is a great option to take to rank 5. Juggernaut, that would be my guilty pleasure. Again, part of this list is, again, my opinion, the things that I would consider strongest to take to rank 5. And the only problem with Juggernaut is his prestige. I think that would ultimately be the only thing that kind of talks me out of taking him to rank 5. If Juggernaut had an average level prestige, somewhere in the middle, I would have taken him up if I had a Mystic because I think he's just bonkers. He's arguably my favorite champion at the moment in the game. And I wanted to put that out there. Because remember, if you do have like a champion that you absolutely love, do not be afraid to rank up that champion. At the end of the day, it is still a game. Right. Rintra, ever so solid rank up, obviously. I know a few people who took Rintra up, and rank 4 Rintra is beefy, but rank 5 Rintra is insane. It would just be borderline immortal there. And then on a similar level, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking up your Sasquatch or taking up your Man-Thing, especially if you enjoy those champions, but obviously as a Battlegrounds defenders, that might be a bit more, again, Battlegrounds leaning rank up, but still. Sasquatch. And for a moment as well, one of the things that I considered myself in skill class was Korg. You'd have to be especially sadistic and evil type of person, which I almost was, taking Korg to rank 5. Again, I do not necessarily recommend taking up strict defenders. That's why, again, I didn't want to kind of get overboard mentioning those champions. So, you know, ideally you probably want to use that first rank 5 rank up on a champion that's great offensively and defensively, or strictly offensively, because, you know, that's what you want to do. You want to actually play and use these champions. Anyways, one thing that I wanted to say is I am extremely happy that I have seen some extremely unusual rank ups. And if you have ranked up something cool like OG Tor or whatever else, I'd love to see some gameplay. You can reach out to me and I'll try my best to get back to you. And as an additional side note, I have fallen behind my line messages, so I will be resetting all of my line messages, I believe, tomorrow. And then if I haven't replied to you, just send that message again to me in like a day. I'm not ignoring anybody on purpose online. Either way, let me know what you guys think, and I hope you guys found this video useful, and I will catch you guys later. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about